Adamawa was flooded last
Yes.
week or so. We've seen flood in some part of the eastern part of the country as well. This is a flood that I think that if government can just look at that, it can be channeled to the advantage of farming.
As I've said, most of the government policies are not being consistent. It's just like the power supply we are talking about. They said during the dry season the Kanji Dam will be dry up. Why can't they provide provisions for this thing? Why do they have to wait for the Kanji Dam to dry up when they can make some kind of reservoirs so that we will not have a shortage of water? The same thing with the irrigations. Irrigations go with the water, with the modern equipment to assist the farmers. But as long as most of this money that is going to the agric is being going to the political farmers, we will keep on having problems.
Okay, Professor, the Food and Agriculture Organization in a recent release said that there was a need for the international action to calm markets, which remained unchanged. We've seen the prices of food rising since August, and we saw in 2007, 2008, where there was a food crisis. There were protests in some parts of Africa. I remember Burkina Faso.
Right.
There were protests in those Western countries. Now, are we seeing ourselves moving to that to that same state if we do not take the right actions, the right steps at this point to address the food crisis on the continent?
Undoubtedly, I foresee that Africa may move towards that, because the various strategies coming up from the various governments are not pro-poor. Those and the poor people normally produce as much as about 70-75% of the food needs of Africa. And what we are saying, therefore, is that we need to assist these resource poor farmers in order to increase the level of production. The various large-scale farmers are really producing for their own industries or for export. But that's not what we need. What we need is the group of people that we produce for Africans to eat within the domestic setup. Therefore, the issue of capital, issue of credit becomes important. The issue of land, given the land rigidities that we have in many African countries, we need really to control that and minimize such rigidities so that more land will be made available to the resource poor farmers who don't even have land. There are some peasants that don't even have land, and so they don't have any area to farm. 3, the issue of extension, as I stated earlier on, needs to be extended to the poor people. It's not to the rich people. Because the rich people they only try to maximize their profit by producing those commodities that are of high price, and the high price are obtained at the export market. 4,
okay,
the issue of capacity building, even for the youths, because as you observe now, the farming population is controlled by people within the range of 60, 65, 70%, 70 years old. But we need to develop the youths. And that's why we have mass unemployment among the various school leavers.
Now, maybe some kind of attraction should be put into agriculture.
Excellent.
To make these young people who want to earn money.
To really go into agriculture and practice mechanization. Well, I must commend Lagos State in this area. They are doing that, given the Agri Years program that they have in Epe. But not many of the various states are really doing that. I can count only 2 or 3. States that are really doing that. So therefore, the states, the federal government, the local government, they need to be involved in this before food can be increased.
Okay.
And therefore,
let me hear from Wale Oyekoya. The professor was talking about having to extend, facilities, funding to farmers, to the poor people. One would wonder, who are those? Can you categorize as the poor people? Because if you're talking about mechanized farming, how many people can afford to do that? How do you think the government can come in to address, that cadre of the population? Many of them could be aged, but at least that way, if it can extend it to those who are regarded as poor, perhaps it can serve as some kind of attraction to young people to also go into farming.
Yes, it has to be noted that 90% of farmers, of the so-called farmers in Nigeria, are poor. It's less than 10% that could say they practice mechanized farming.
We've seen the central bank having trying to give loans, agricultural scheme, that various schemes that has been introduced by the central bank in conjunction with the Ministry of Finance and some banks to help make provisions for loans,
as I said,
at single-digit interest rate. Has that been explored by many of the farmers that you know?
No, most of this money, most of this CAC, which is what they call credit agricultural credit scheme, is only meant for the mechanized farming, for the rich people. Because if the interest rate is about 9%, that's quadra, but they want you to have an equity of almost about 200 million naira in your farm before you could be eligible to tap into this.
So most of the poor people do not fall into that category?
No.
So how can they be assisted?
The only thing that they can do, as I said, the government has a very good policy, but it's the management of the policy that is questionable.
Maybe you should just let us know these policies as to how well can they be improved upon.
They need to go directly to these farmers, not channeling the money to the government, to the agencies that we sit down on this money, and the money doesn't at the end get to the real farmer that really need this money. Because no farmer can easily go to the bank and tap into this money in the commercial banks, because instead of giving it to the farmers at a low interest rate, they will give to the big businesses, people that can make about 25-26% interest out of it. So as I have said, the government need to do more, the CBN need to do more. They need to get out of the office and see if most of these rural farmers, subsistence farmers, are really benefiting from this money that is being thrown up in the air, billions going to the farmers, which the money is not really going to them. Because by the time the money is given to the state government, it's going to be divided into so many sections. So the actual farmers will not get it. And at the end of the day, most of this money will go into the political farmers.
Political farmers?
Yes. We have so many political farmers that they are just using the money. Immediately they find out that some billions is getting to the state government for agriculture, you started seeing them, calling them, oh, it's like a free biz for them. It's like a free money. So that is why you see most farmers will keep on having the problems, because the government and the CBN are not really addressing this issue appropriately.
Before I get to Professor Bola, I'm going to ask you once again. Now, I don't know, many of those farmers are into associations and groups, and that they do their meetings with. Is there a way that they can liaise with the government, or because there's no way we can really put aside the banks. The banks will always be involved in anything that has to do with government, because money passes through them.
Sure.
And money has to go through the bank to the farmer. But are there other groups that seems to be channeling the cause? This cause, the government say that we are here and we are not being funded.
Where they have been liaising, most of these organizations like the Nigerian Farmers Association, AFAN, for the fish, for the poultry, Association of Nigeria, they've been liaising with the government, but the money doesn't really get to them. See, most of the issue we have here, there are so many eye services by the government. Maybe they can just tap about 5 or 10 farmers that is of their own people. They say, well, they throw some money to them and they'll be making us in the news that they are assisting farmers. But
you need to have your proof about what you're saying about.
I know what I'm talking about because
I'm
very close to the farmers. Very, very close. And most of the chairman for all these associations, I know some of them.
Okay. Let me hear from Professor Bola. A while ago, the Minister for Agriculture was saying that many of the rice that we import into the country would have spent 10 years or even more stored somewhere, in the Asian country before they're imported into the country. And it doesn't really sound good to those of us who want to eat good food that are produced and and immediately eaten. In that case, how can we? I know that the ministry are doing so many things to ensure that production of rice, not just rice, now other staples, is improved upon. But what can be done to have a sustained program for food production without having to depend solely on imported food items?
Well, okay, I will answer that, but please permit me just to chip in a word regarding how we can assist the poor people, the poor farmers. In the first place, cooperatives and group farming have been found to be much more easily attractable, and they can easily get back their money. And I think the government can take upon itself to really strengthen that strategy. And they can strengthen it not just through the ministry alone, but through some organizations, such as universities, such as research institutes that have contact farmers. And so those universities...
you have a list of farmers?
Of course we do.
Farmers,
yes.
Not the mechanized farmers?
No. For instance, our university, we have contact farmers. We have as many as about 250 contact farmers.
Okay.
That through that we can give some incentives. Is it money? Is it input?